$240 million. Let that massive number completely sink into your brain for a second. The Oklahoma City Thunder just handed the absolute keys to their franchise and $250 million to a 7-foot center who completely ghosted them when it mattered the most. In a do-or-die Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals, Chet Holmgren was absolutely humiliated, physically bullied, and ran off the hardwood by Victor Wembanyama. The Spurs are going to the finals, but the real underlying story is the catastrophic financial disaster currently looming in Oklahoma City. Let's talk about the biggest disappearing act in playoff history. If you are going to command maximum money in the National Basketball Association, you are strictly required to produce maximum results when the lights are the absolute brightest. Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals is the ultimate unforgiving litmus test for a franchise cornerstone. It aggressively separates the foundational superstars from the regular season stat patters. And when the Oklahoma City Thunder desperately needed their towering big man to hold the line against a surging San Antonio Spurs roster, Chet Holmgren produced a stat line that belongs in a preseason scrimmage, not a conference finals closeout game. Holmgren finished this grueling, legacy-defining Game 7 with a devastatingly bad 4 points and 4 rebounds. 4 points. This was not just a poor shooting night where the basketball was simply refusing to fall through the cylinder. This was a complete and utter psychological surrender. The San Antonio Spurs fundamentally understood that Holmgren currently lacks the lower body strength and the aggressive, dog-like mentality to demand the basketball in the painted area. They did not have to throw complex double teams at him. They did not have to heavily rotate or aggressively trap him on the perimeter. They simply let Victor Wembanyama completely dominate his airspace, and Holmgren instantly folded under the pressure. When you are on the floor for heavy rotation minutes in a Game 7, only generating a handful of offensive touches is a glaring red flag that you are actively hiding from the moment. The Spurs aggressively pushed the tempo, initiated heavy physical contact on every single defensive possession, and happily watched Holmgren shrink into the background while Wembanyama cemented his legacy and sent San Antonio back to the promised land. The absolute tragedy of this performance is not just the immediate, heartbreaking elimination from the playoffs. It is the terrifying financial reality that the Oklahoma City Thunder have locked themselves into for the foreseeable future. Holmgren and the Thunder recently agreed to a fully guaranteed 5-year maximum rookie contract extension. Depending on the specific scaling metrics, this massive contract has a baseline of roughly $239.25 million and could reach up to a staggering $250 million. This massive contract is going to completely paralyze the Thunder's incredible front office flexibility moving forward. For years, General Manager Sam Presti has meticulously hoarded first-round draft picks and maintained a sparkling clean salary cap sheet to build an unstoppable organic dynasty. But when you are paying Shai Gilgeous-Alexander a supermax contract and you lock up Holmgren for another $250 million, you lose the ability to acquire vital role players, defensive specialists, and necessary veteran depth. You are financially committing to the idea that Chet Holmgren is a true, undeniable superstar who can go toe-to-toe with the very best big men in the league. Game 7 proved that he is currently miles away from being that guy. For the last 2 years, the NBA media machine has desperately tried to sell the fans on the narrative that Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren are fierce, evenly matched rivals. They were both continuously billed as modern-day unicorns, 7-footers with guard-like handles who could effortlessly shoot from the perimeter and completely lock down the rim at a historic level. But the Western Conference Finals brutally exposed that this is not a rivalry, it is a total mismatch. Wembanyama is a generational anomaly who possesses pure, unteachable physical dominance. He embraces the heavy contact, fights through the bruises for deep post positioning, and violently attacks the basket. Holmgren, conversely, was exposed as a pure finesse player who desperately relies on spacing and systemic offensive flow to get his points. When the game naturally slows down in the playoffs and the whistle gets swallowed by the referees, you have to be able to manufacture your own offense through sheer willpower. The Spurs' defensive scheme practically invited Holmgren to put the ball on the floor and drive. But every time he tried to face up, he was bumped off his spot by smaller, significantly stronger defenders or swallowed whole by Wembanyama's ridiculous wingspan. Holmgren's total inability to punish defensive mismatches is the most alarming part of his current offensive repertoire. If the Spurs switched a smaller wing defender onto him, instead of backing them down, sealing them deep in the paint, and demanding the basketball for an easy high-percentage jump hook, Holmgren would lazily float out to the three-point line and settle for heavily contested low-percentage jumpers. You cannot be a primary offensive engine in this league if you allow opposing teams to successfully guard a 7-footer with a shooting guard. That lack of interior aggression completely derailed the Thunder's offense and allowed the Spurs to heavily trap Shai Gilgeous-Alexander without any fear of the ball being rotated to a dominant scoring big man inside. As the San Antonio Spurs confidently advance to the NBA Finals and Wembanyama takes his rightful place as the new face of the league, the Oklahoma City Thunder are heading into a horrifyingly tense offseason. They have to face some incredibly uncomfortable truths during their exit interviews. The fun honeymoon phase of being a young, overachieving roster is completely over. Expectations have fundamentally shifted, and right now, their newly minted $240 million man looks like a massive, glaring liability against the physical elite of the Western Conference. The front office cannot simply void a fully guaranteed contract. They are legally married to Chet Holmgren for the next half-decade. This means the entire developmental staff in Oklahoma City has to completely rebuild his physical profile from the ground up. He has to spend the entire summer locked inside a weight room, adding functional lower body strength. He needs to hire legendary post players to teach him the dark arts of securing position, sealing off defenders, and finishing through brutal playoff-level contact. He absolutely cannot continue to exist exclusively as a weak side shot blocker and a perimeter spot-up shooter. If Holmgren does not take a massive, unprecedented leap in his physical development by next season, the Thunder's entire championship window is going to slam shut before it ever truly opens. The league has officially figured him out. The Spurs laid out the perfect defensive blueprint on national television, and you can guarantee that every single team in the NBA has already downloaded the tape. If you get highly physical with him, if you bump him off his preferred spots, and if you challenge his toughness, the $240 million unicorn will completely disappear into the shadows. The clock is officially ticking in OKC, and the pressure is entirely on Chet Holmgren to prove he is actually worth the fortune he just signed for. Subscribe to Spice Talk Sports for more real basketball talk.